Danganronpa 2. Don Sombrero. Okay, good abilities. Ultima is not... it's not that Ultima is a bad ability. It's not awful. It's an area of effect black magic ability, so if you've got black mages around that can't use summoning, it's something that they can use. But it's just so far down on the totem pole compared to Meltdown that Meltdown should be the primary priority, and those are the only two Black Crystal primary 6-star abilities. See, 10 crystals for level 1, level 2 20, level 3 30. So that's going to be your primary bottleneck when creating them. They do share fire crystals, and earth crystals on Meltdown are shared with another good ability, Curada. So I'm gonna write that down because Meltdown is one of the best 6-star abilities. So we're gonna write that down, and it's orbs. And we're gonna do this for all the 6-star abilities and look for conflicts. Meltdown would be an S tier 6-star ability. Black primary, fire and earth. And we can throw Ultima down. We'll put it in B tier for now. Okay. Next up, we have the white crystal abilities. So they share that bottleneck. This is even easier than Ultima and Meltdown because Ultima actually has a use. Re-Raise does not. It is it's painfully bad. It's just I don't get it. They need to change this ability. It's just rotten. And on the other side of the spectrum, Curada is awesome. Curada is just fantastic. So we're throwing that at S, and we're gonna give Re-Raise an F. Re-Raise is the Dark Cecil of 6-star abilities. So Curada is white, earth, and holy. I'm not even going to bother typing out the orbs for Re-Raise because there's no reason anyone should ever make it. Okay, next up. I'm going to go over all of the power crystal primaries. Does this work? All of the power crystal primaries. What is the Gao of abilities? Hopefully we get to that. There's a lot more power crystal abilities than there are for black and white crystals. So there's we get a lot more power crystals to make up for that. And then there's the fact that a lot of these abilities, other than Crushdown and Omega Drive, all of them are created. So you actually save yourself 10 crystals. And since they're created, you can create more than one. And if, you have too many of them, you can shatter them. And there does get to a point where it's okay to do that. I would be scared witless shattering a 6-star ability, though. So first of all, we're going to look at the two Nightmare abilities, which is Crushdown and Omega Drive. Crushdown is the physical counterpart of of Ultima, but where Ultima doesn't have anything that really competes with it, at Black Magic, it has everything that it competes with is a summoning ability, which not a lot of... I don't even know what the split is. Someone's probably going to find out eventually, but or figure it out. It's less common for a mage to have summoner than for a combat character to have access to an area of effect command or something. I don't know. Anyway, Crushdown sucks. Just forget the last 30 seconds of whatever I just came out of my mouth and just understand that Crushdown stinks. Omega Drive doesn't. Omega Drive is 4 attacks, but the multiplier increases with the user's attack. As long as you've got around 1358 attack, you've got a pretty nice multiplier. 1538 is a tough total to hit. But it still gets up pretty big around the normal attack levels of about 900 to 1000. But if you're using Omega Drive, you would definitely prefer to have a lot of attack buffs going on. Anyway, it's a really powerful single target non-elemental attack. We're going to put Omega Drive at A. It is S for Cloud, but where Meltdown is very, very good in the hands of a lot of mages, Omega Drive has a smaller use case. You understand if Omega Drive is good for you. Omega Drive takes Power, Fire, and Dark. I'm going to drop Ultima to C and put Crushdown with it. Power, Fire, Earth. Alright, next up we have the created Power Crystal abilities. Quad Foul. 4 random attacks. For a 4.0 multiplier. And causes poison, sleep, blind, and silence. Well, we know the statuses are useless because that's the way Final Fantasy Record Keeper is. So is a support ability with a 4.0 multiplier worth anything? No, there are thousands of things that supports could do that are more important than doing a 4.0 non-elemental attack. This goes in D. Affliction Break. 2 single attacks causes status chance minus 50% for 15 seconds. I bet you I can name 750 at least. Affliction Break is very good. And Affliction Break is going to gain more usefulness coming up. In the 4-star Magicite dungeons, which just throw status effects at you like it's going out of style. So, Affliction Break we're going to throw in A. Because there are ways that you can get around using Affliction Break. There's other things you can do, you know, status resistances and Astra. So Affliction Break isn't like 100% useful. It's just a very good option for the 4-star Magicite dungeons coming up. And that's why it's not an S. Another thing to note, because I don't say this enough, is that status chance 50% is works a little differently than you would think it would. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Rainmaker, I'm gonna do that. The way statuses are calculated is that sometimes you'll see on AI lists and stuff that a status has a 300 and something % chance to hit. So what is even the point of using quadruple foul, right? Because if you reduce that by 50%, then it's 150%. That's still going to hit 100% of the time. Well, that's not the way statuses are calculated. When an enemy uses a status effect, the percentage is converted. So 300%, then the game says, okay, this status has a 100% chance to hit because it said 300 and something %, right? After that, that is when the calculation of affliction break comes in. So by using affliction break, you automatically grant yourself at least a 1 in 2 chance of dodging a status. So it's a lot more significant than you think. The only way in which it behaves in the way that you would assume it would is if that percentage starts out below 100% to begin with. You don't get them for free. You get the crystals. Like, if you have made the ability, then the crystals are the 10 crystals from creation, or 11, because 10, well, even more than that, 22. Is instant KO affected by affliction break? No. 22 crystals that you would get from creating another ability are not there because you start out at rank 1. Is that the same way accessories work? No. There's actually another Rainmaker. We went over it last night. There's a 4-star Magicite that gives minus 10% status chance. Oh, these aren't. You're right. Sorry, Wyvern. Support are still Nightmare. Sorry, I was wrong. Celerity work too. Spellblade is the only one that you create here on this list. Oh, Gravity isn't affected, but Instant KO is, yeah. Okay, so that was Affliction Break. I need to copy down the crystals. Power, Non, and Dark. Next up is Northern Cross. Now we have the 2 Celerity abilities. And one of these is clearly better than the other. One is basically quadruple foul. With 4 single attacks, 1.0 each. It just causes interrupt or stun and stop 17% per hit. Just not good. Another status infliction thing. And with only a 4.0 multiplier, that would just need to be exceeded by Dervish for it to be any good, and it is. So Northern Cross we're gonna put at D along with quadruple foul. It does have a great animation. It's like a soul break animation on an ability. So next up, and the thing that makes Northern Cross a D is Dervish, which is 8 single attacks at 0.48 each, with a 0.6 multiplier if the user has haste, and it grants haste to the user. So if you have haste, and in almost any situation in the game you do, then this is 8 times 0.6, which works out to a 4.8 multiplier. That's a very, very good multiplier on an attack. So you get an increased multiplier over 4 extra attacks as opposed to Northern Cross. It does what it's supposed to do, and that is damage. So Dervish, is actually a good ability. The problem is there's just very few people that can truly make use of it properly. Most celerity characters do an element, right? And they prefer to be using elemental abilities. So where does this come into play? It's actually just for a single character. And until Zach gets his wind 5-star celerity ability in 3 months, I suppose it's also for Zach. But this character in question is actually a pretty significant one. It's Onion Knight, who gets a 35% chance to dual cast celerity abilities, which turns that 4.8 non-elemental into something a little more sinister. It remains to be seen because we don't have access to Onion Knight's Legend Dive. We don't have access to Onion Knight's physical USB yet. I don't personally know how powerful this is, and I would hold off on bothering or using it until we have a little more information. But it's something I am currently farming power crystals for because I think it has a potential to be good in Onion Knight's hands. And that is a banner I plan on pulling for, so it'd be nice to have these crystals ready to go if it does turn out to be something good. So that's Power, Lightning, and Wind. I'm going to put this at A. But it's like conditional, just like Omega Drive. You need Onion Knight for it to be useful, and then we don't even know. So the A is just like, it's like a question mark. I just want it to be noticed, that's why we're putting it at A. Where Omega Drive, it's S if you have Cloud's USB. And Dervish is Power, Lightning, and Wind. Lastly, we do have the single crafted ability on this list, Snowspell Strike, and oh, what an ability it is. Snowspell Strike is a 4.4 multiplier over 4 hits, and it's a dual elemental in Ice and Wind. That is something you don't see on any of the others here, and that's a really significant difference, because if you're exploiting a normal elemental weakness of 50%, that turns this ability into a 6.6 multiplier. And not only that, but you see a 90 soul break generation on these, an 85 on these, and an 80 on Snowspell Strike. If you're exploiting weakness, that turns the Snowspell Strike generation into 120 soul break points, which turns it into an immensely powerful, almost as good Life Siphon, as far as soul break points are concerned. Yeah, absolutely, Strider. Snowspell Strike is, in my opinion, the best ability on this list. Omega Drive is a good ability and is very powerful in Cloud's hands. But Snowspell Strike is really, really, really good. And I throw it in S because it's just that powerful. Now it is Power, Ice, and Winds, but the first rank is free. So I'll asterisk it. Six-star abilities, Max Rage. Alright, so after Power, the last primary crystal. Oops. It's not letting me do it anymore. Damn it. Oh, I know why, because I didn't have a filter enabled. We have Neo Bahamut and Valley. I didn't even need to do this for this one. There's only two. Neo Bahamut and Valley Garmanda, which is an interesting duo because they're actually both good. Neo Bahamut is 4 group attacks of 4.8 each. That's a 19.2 multiplier on an ability. That's really powerful. But it is non-elemental. And here's where I actually give the go-ahead to Valley Garmanda over at Neo Bahamut. Because though it has a lower multiplier and only hits 3 times, it's hard, very, very difficult. I don't even know anyone that can do it with any amount of ease to hit Neo Bahamut's 40,000 damage cap, because it is non-elemental. There's no damage boosts that you can give it, easy ones through exploiting elemental vulnerability or anything. Where Valley Garmanda has no such problem. So let's say you're doing a typical exploit of 150%, which puts Valley Garmanda at what? Around 25 multiplier. It is, yeah, okay, you're going to bump into the 30,000 damage cap. I do. But at least you're hitting 30,000, where it's very difficult to hit that with Neo Bahamut. And even if you do exceed that cap with Neo Bahamut's 4 hits, there's another big difference here, and we just went over it with Snowspell Strike. Is Valley Garmanda has a base of 90, Neo Bahamut has a base of, Neo Bahamut has a base of 90, Valley Garmanda has a base of 80 soul break points. If you exploit weakness, which Valley Garmanda has 3 elements to its name, then you're generating 120 with Valley Garmanda. Valley Garmanda actually turns into the closest thing to a life siphon that mages get, well, summoners get. As long as you're exploiting the 3 primary elements, which is fire, ice, and lightning. And that's why those 2 things together, the fact that you're probably going to be dealing more damage with Valley Garmanda, and you're definitely going to be generating more soul break points with Valley Garmanda, is why I place it at a higher priority than Neo. Now, how much do it doesn't really matter that much how I rate these abilities, because their primary is summoning. Do you think Alf with USB and max rank, Neo, could cap it? He's the only one that has a shot. So he gets a 30% damage boost. Probably not, Jimbo. No. The advantage of Alphino's USB is the finisher, which is another 35% damage boost, but that doesn't factor in until after the casts. So I don't think he's going to be capping, but he's going to be doing a hell of a lot of damage. Neo Bahamut is probably much closer to being a primary hone over Valley Garmanda if you have Alphino's USB. But at the end of the day, he's a summoner and he wants to, I still think Valley Garmanda's key, even if you have Alphino's USB. But I suppose I'll split it this way. If I have Alphino's USB, I want to hone both of these. So all 4 of my stamina potions every single week are going to the stamina daily. The summoning crystal daily. I personally want to make both of these abilities, but Valley Garmanda comes first. I'm thinking of getting it to R4 and then working on Neo Bahamut. But if there's ever a situation that I need a rank 5 summon, it's hard to have 100 crystals and waiting in the wing, So what do? Do I wait until I have 110 crystals and then create Neo Bahamut? Where do I place these on the list? I'm going to Valley Garmanda at S. Because it's basically a summoning version of Snowspell Strike. And Neo Bahamut is really good, but A or B? Probably B. Affliction Break seems like it'd be more worthy of a... It makes sense, yeah. It makes sense at B. So Valley is summoning Ice Lightning. Now we'll put Neo in A, because I think it makes sense a lot of sense next to Omega Drive and Dervish. I can't. Omega Drive and Dervish are both like, yeah, no. I'm flip-flopping, but I think this makes a lot of sense because Valley Garmanda should take precedence. So it doesn't make sense for these crystals to be compared to those A-tier crystals. This isn't, on that note, this is not a tier list of 6-star abilities. This is a tier list of crystal priority. Alright, so now that we have the rest of them, it's a motley crew. Sky High, Lifebane, Mug Bloodlust, Aegis Strike, Demon's Blood, Stitch in Time, Allegro Con Modo, and Penalty Snipe. These are also create abilities. There's nothing here that's gotten from the Nightmare, right? Yeah. You create all of these. And their primary crystals are all over the place. Sky High is not worth making. Sky High is a D. There is a 5-star Dragoon ability that I believe either matches... It's in the same ballpark. Unless you have multiple Dragoons in the air, which is stupid. So it's a 4.72 multiplier. Aerial Dive is a 4.52. So it is better than Aerial Dive. But just barely. And incurs a very heavy cost of lightning, earth, and wind crystals. So, D. Lifebane, a little bit different. Because Lifebane's actually kind of powerful. Sky High is a bit stronger and gives 20 more soul break points. Actually, it doesn't. It gives 80. Right? Oh no, Sky High does give 90. You're correct. Sorry. So, with exploiting weakness, that would be bumped up to 135. So that would be pretty good. But with it being so close to Aerial Dive, again, still in D. Because other things are worth your crystals more. And that's what this is. It's a rank of crystal priority. Even if that, you're right. 90 for an elemental ability is a lot. Thank you for bringing that to my attention, because that's, I think that's the only elemental ability in the game like that. Now, Lifebane is another non-elemental ability, and hits 5 times if you meet the attack threshold, and if you hit 5 times, then you have a 5.25 multiplier. In comparison to the max Omega Drive, what's 4? It's about the same. So Omega Drive is actually better, but only over 4 hits instead of Lifebane's 5 hits. Another good thing about Lifebane is that the attack threshold to hit that 5.25 is much lower than Omega Drive. So when do we use Lifebane? 2 monks come to mind. 3, actually, because I think Ida is probably good enough. Ida has a USB that gives her, I think, instant monk attacks 3, which obviously works with any monk ability, so Lifebane actually works pretty decent on her. The other monks that come to mind would be Prish with her Burst Soul Break, but that's definitely not what it once was, since it's just a burst. Most importantly, Master. So this is actually kind of a pretty bad ability in anyone's hands other than Master. Oh, Omega Drive hits 5.26. Okay. I didn't know it was that that generous of a curve. Okay, well. Final verdict still stands. Lifebane's probably only good in the hands of Master. And Snow, until we get a 5-star Ice Monk ability. So Master's USB, 10 single attacks, attack and resistance plus 30% to the user for 25 seconds. Grants critical damage 50% and rush follow-up to the user. Really nice. And, you know, honestly, this works really well with both his Burst Soul Break and his USB. Rush follow-up is it's just a chase. Crit damage 50%. It's obviously coupled with crit damage 50%. I'd want something to increase my crit rate. Oh god, I'm getting off track, but I have to know. And he doesn't get any crit up in his Legend Dive. Okay. So his Burst Soul Break is actually pretty nice for him. Alright, so Lifebane is good in the hands of Master. So where do I even put this? I should make like a separate list of this ability is only good in this one person or two people's hands. Like Sky High for Fang and Sid. Lifebane for Master. Omega Drive for Cloud and Noctis. Dervish for Onion Knight. Because if we're talking about crystal priority here, obviously these are pretty low on the chain if you don't have those. Oh, I'll just put qualifiers. Prish has a USB? Yeah, that does change things. I completely forgot about Prish's and her with her USB. For Noctis Omega Drive, are we assuming is LMR? It's less good. I suppose. Does he get combat damage up in his Legend Dive? In his Record Dive? That'll determine whether to use Omega Drive or Dervish at that point. But I think Noctis with his BSB is already on the edge of being useful. So maybe not. If you don't have his LMR. It's not even worth... He's combat 9%? Okay. Then Noctis with Omega Drive. You don't really want to use Dervish on him. Okay, so that was Life Bane. Next is Mug Bloodlust. This ability changed. 2 single attacks, attack and defense minus 30%, but I mean the important part here is the attack and defense plus 30%. I kind of like this ability, but it doesn't need to be honed. Rank 1 is fine. It's a 20-second buff. And it's not like you're spam casting this. So... F? Mug Bloodlust should never cost you crystals. Aegis Strike is, honestly, if Area of Effect was more of a thing in this game, it'd actually be pretty decent. What do we got? 3 group at 1.3. Damage scales with attack and defense, though. Ugh. It's just 3 attacks. I could never use this in anything other than a group situation because Assault Saber and Guardbringer exist. Yeah, that Armor Strike formula sucks. I mean, it does have a better overall multiplier than Assault Saber does, but 3 hits versus 5. That's significant. Aegis Strike is gonna go D because, hey, who knows? Maybe someone wants to make an Area of Effect Holy Attack. Demon's Blood is D. Non-elemental Samurai for a 3.1 multiplier. Gets a buff though, right? Wow. Buff to 3 attacks for a 3.3 multiplier. Whoa, baby. It's bad. Stitch in Time, 2 single attacks grant Stitch in Time to the user. It's instant cast, and I think that is a really cool thing about this. Generates 85 soul break points, reduced by 5 because of the instant cast. And Stitch in Time is actually an attack buff now. The problem with Stitch in Time is the characters that you want to use it on, other than Fusion, don't often want to be using anything other than the 2 elemental 5-star abilities. Water, Dark, and Earth for ninjas. I think that this ability still is stuck to being good on Fusion and Tyro. That's it. But We don't even have to make that determination because grants attention time to the user for 15 seconds. Just like Mug Bloodlust, it is a buff and you don't need to hone it. So the evaluation was moot. F. Allegro Con Moto grants Magical Quick Cast 3. So, at rank 1, you have the ability to give 6 turns of Magical Quick Cast to your party. Also, doesn't need to be honed, just needs to be created, so F. However, the ability is awesome. And it grants Magical Quick Cast 3 to the entire party, not just a single person. The entire party. That's why it's not really something you spam. And lastly, we have Machinist Penalty Snipe. 3 group range attacks with a higher multiplier. So a 1.35 multiplier over 3 attacks. If the user has, or if the target has 1 or 3 status ailments. This is just terrible. So it only has a 4.05 multiplier over 3 attacks. Nope. D. And that's under the most favorable of circumstances. Inflicting status ailments, because that's a thing. Whoa, Max Raged. Have you seen re-raise lately? At least it does damage Paranoid Survivor. Re-raise actually just does nothing. It generates soul break points. So maybe that's not right. Okay, so the list is assembled. It's going to change a bit soon once we find out the new 6-star abilities that come out in Japan. But we've got plenty of time to see those coming and know where we got to get our crystals. But for now, I would say the S tier of Meltdown, Curada, Snowspell Strike, and Valley Gormanda creates a little bit of overlap. We have Black Fire Earth on Meltdown, White Earth and Holy on Curada, Power Ice and Wind on Snowspell Strike, and Summoning Ice and Lightning on Valley Gormanda. So that would be an overlap of Ice and Earth. Otherwise, we have one occurrence of Fire, Holy, Wind, and Lightning. So Earth and Ice. And then a little further down the list, we have Omega Drive, Affliction Break, Dervish. And I suppose I'll put Sky High at the same tier because I think it would be... I'll put it at B because it's not quite as necessary as Omega Drive for like Cloud. But if you have Cloud's USB or Noctis's USB plus his Legend Dive, then Omega Drive becomes a good hone. Probably still a decent hone because you can... With all the power crystals that we have in the game, it's actually kind of easy to maintain 2 power abilities. Snow Spell Strike is also a power ability, so maybe not. Probably want to hold off on Omega Drive unless you actually, feel the need for it. But anyway, Omega Drive is Power, Fire, and Dark. So Fire would have a conflict with Meltdown. Affliction Break is Power, Non-Elemental, and Dark, which has no conflict with anything on the S tier. That's what makes Affliction Break as awesome as it is there's 0 conflict other than those power crystals with Snowspell Strike. And like I said, it's easy to maintain 2 at the moment. And Affliction Break also doesn't need a high hone. It's a status, so it lasts for 15 seconds. So Affliction Break at R2 is all you need. So that's handy, and that's probably what enables Omega Drive to be just fine as a thing, along with Snowspell Strike and Affliction Break. And lastly, another power crystal hog, Dervish, with power, lightning, and wind. And now we do see a couple of conflicts. Dervish shares wind with Snowspell Strike and lightning with Valley Garmanda. Because, let's look, Earth, Ice, Fire, Lightning, and Wind all have a little conflicts between the S and the A. It's okay, because they're secondaries. They're not primaries, so as long as they only occur once, if you look at the progression of how much these crystals take, or how much these abilities take to hone, so Omega Drive, for instance, is 10 power, 20, 30, 50, 100. But the fire crystals, which it conflicts with Meltdown, and Meltdown has a secondary fire as well, is only 6, 12, 18, 30. So if you have an R3 Omega Drive and an R3 Meltdown, you're only looking at 36 crystals used. That's not a lot at all. If you want to go further, if you're one of those unfortunate souls that has both Cloud's USB and Vivi or Terra's USBs, then okay, you're looking at more fire crystal usage. Because both of those characters want a very high hone on their Meltdown. Creel and her USB as well requires a high hone on Meltdown. But that's not out yet. Yeah, exactly. I tried to emphasize the unfortunate. So what else are we looking at here for conflicts? Since I would suggest leaving Neo Bahamut and its hone until after Valley Garmanda is all taken care of, you can assume the same for the non-elemental and dark orbs. So there's likely not going to be a conflict with Affliction Break and Omega Drive also use dark. And Affliction Break also uses non-elemental. Again, because Affliction Break doesn't require a high hone. Is R4 sufficient? Probably. So R4 is 4 uses with Vivi. I'm probably gunning for R5 Meltdown if I have Vivi's USB, because R4 is just doesn't seem like it's enough, but maybe it is. And that's one thing that you can find out on your own. You definitely want at least R4. And then you bring it into the battle, and then you can tell yourself whether or not you need it further. So Neo Bahamut's not going to be a problem. It's just that conflict with Valley Garmanda and forced me to prioritize one over the other, even though I personally want to hone both of them. Sky High. Lightning, Earth, and Wind. I suppose you can just say if you have Fang or Sid Final Fantasy VII's USBs. Oh, Lunith as well. Then you have a decision to make. Lightning Primary. So it has a conflict with Valley Garmanda. And that's a rougher conflict than the others, because that is a primary lightning on Sky High. So I'd probably hone Valley Garmanda up, for as much as I want to, and make use of Aerial Dive, the 5-star Dragoon ability. and then progress. Like, once I've got Valley-Armanda up to where I want it to, then upgrade my aerial dive to sky high. Yeah, Sid Raines. The reason why Sid Raines was the chase that he was. Well, it works both ways. He was super powerful when it first came out, and has maintained that status for a very long time. This is power creep to Sid Raines. And then they gave him a USB. Any future updates or rumors of being able to make extra copies of the Nightmare 6 Star? None that I know of. Does anyone have anything to say about my little list? I suppose I can display it, because it's hard to illustrate with words all these numbers. Colors. Oops. Yay! Ah, yeah, it did, Dragon. As far as farming crystals goes, I don't think you can go wrong by farming the Power Black and the Summoning Dailies. Because Kirata is the only 6-star white crystal ability, probably unnecessary unless we find out that there's another 6-star coming out in the future and you'll want white orbs for. But that's going to be so far out into the future that we have plenty of time to accumulate those naturally through events and if you want to start doing a daily. But I think you can probably leave the white daily alone for now. Unless you don't have Kirata at R3 yet. R3 Kirata with 8 uses is ideal. But Black Power and Summoning, those dailies, valuable, I think. Meltdown's going to require a lot of black orbs. So maybe black a little less, because if you don't have access to those, fast casters or rank-based USBs, then having an R4 is definitely an R5 Meltdown is kind of pointless. So maybe you don't have to worry about those, but I don't think you can go wrong with farming the primaries, because they're going to be useful in the future. Orbs, since the beginning of time, orbs and crystals have always revolved around the primaries. And then you just look to the pairings after that. Do I want Meltdown and Kirata? Earth. Are you already good with your Kirata? Before the dailies became active, I was able to R3 Kirata, so Earth is not an important crystal to me. It's only required by Meltdown, and it's a secondary, so I can manage. If I had Vivi's USB, then I'd be thinking other things. Because even at R5, or at R5, even a secondary can be considerable. Holy only appears on Kirata. Holy is not a necessary orb. So, Snowspell Strike and Valley. That, ice crystals could be important, because having a high-honed R3 Snowspell Strike is pretty much ideal. And Valley Garmanda, because it's a summoning, can still be useful at R4 and maybe higher. So ice orbs might be contentious for you. So, what is the point of this? One, it's to figure out which dailies are worth targeting over the same daily of the same day. But there's other dailies that happen every single day, and those are the experience dailies. So by figuring out what crystals we need right now, we can figure out which of these are worth doing, rather than getting orbs, which you may still need for 5-star abilities, or there's another really, really good option. And thank you, Jimbo. Very good. Sharp Charity. There's another really good option, and that's the Experience Daily. Because leveling up Magicite is very difficult, and actually is a pretty big boost. Strangely. It seems like they wouldn't be that impactful, but they are. So something A list like this, how it works for me, is it tells me which days I'm safe to ignore crystals and orbs and head on over to the Experience Daily instead to level up my Magicite. The argument is that it's not alone. It's not singular in what it does. What it does can be mimicked by other things. So it's not, depending on who you are and what you have. I was just being cute, Strider. And it's just like, I had played for so long without Magicites that it was tough to care and devote the time that it took to choosing the right Magicites. I didn't want to bother with it. It was only until I started accumulating a ton of Magicites and getting them leveled up that it was worth, paying attention and using them for all fights instead of just the Magicite. Yeah, well, there you go. Status resistance and status blinks and physical blinks and magic blinks. Well, the crazy thing is almost everything outside of Magicites feel like cheating. Good night, Strider. Crystal Tower was fun. It was fun. So, I mean, what's my take on this? I'm going to be farming power crystals. I'm going to be farming summoning crystals. And because I threw away 30 crystals on Ultima tonight, I'm going to farm black as well. Because I think having a good store of black is going to be good for the possibility that I may be getting something that would make Meltdown worth honing past R3 and for the future. So those will be my 3 crystal farms. Other days will be devoted to experience dailies, to leveling up Magicites. Oh, shit. You want to see a blast from the past? This is the same text document that I used for when we had our last ability discussion. Meltdown, Kurata, Snowspell Strike, Valor Garmanda. Summer Festival, wow. Ability honing. Meltdown, Kurata, Snowspell Strike, Valor Garmanda, Allegro Con Moto. I had Aegis Strike up here. Oops. Mug Bloodlust is a good ability, just doesn't need honing. And Affliction Break and Omega Drive, so seems we've known for a while what the good 6-star abilities were. Other than that Strike, or sorry, Aegis Strike mishap. There we go. Strike through. This took place a long time ago. Does anyone remember when this discussion was? This was right before we found out about the ability upgrade. Wow. I think this was in the spring.